So here's an interesting story about Ukraine. And what it starts off by telling you that Ukraine, it's over as far as the war with Russia. There's really no war happening. Russia's just taking over the country because the Ukraine military is completely disorganized. They're made up of people with no training, and the Russian military is just going to overpower them. And everyone has known this since the start, by the way. So Russia says eastern Ukraine town of Lemon is under its full control. For weeks, Zelensky and other top Ukrainian officials have been asking the United States to provide multiple launch rocket systems, or MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems, which would give Kiev the ability to strike targets from much farther away and a better chance of resisting the assault in the east. Why is this important, Jimmy? What does this have to do with appeasement? I'm going to get there. U.S. officials and congressional staffers told the Post on Friday, again, this is the Washington Post, that the administration is preparing to send the weaponry and could announce the move as early as this week, but the White House must still make a final decision on the transfer. So they're going to send those long-range weapons. Some White House officials expressed concern that providing MLRS weaponry with a range of more than 180 miles would allow Ukrainian forces to hit targets far in Russian territory, potentially prompting an escalatory response from Moscow. You don't want that. But the White House is now comfortable managing that risk by withholding the longest range ammunition for the system. So what they're do, let's realize what's happening here. They want rockets that shoot longer so they can fight Russia from farther away. The United States didn't want to give them those rockets because they were afraid they'd start bombing inside Russia, and that would start a real war with Russia. So they didn't want to do that. So now what they figured out is, oh, well, we'll give them those rocket launchers. We just won't give them the rockets that fly that far. So what they're doing is making sure this isn't an all-out war as far as Ukraine and the United States and NATO is concerned. They're not going all out. Why wouldn't they? Because they just want this war to go on forever. That's why. That's what this paragraph tells you. That's what this tells you. And that they're using the Ukrainian people as cannon fodder for a proxy war. That's what this tells you. Okay, so now you know. And we all know the way this is going to end is with a peace deal where the Ukraine gives up the Donbass and they don't join NATO. Okay. As Ukrainian forces seek to hold the line, officials in Kiev have been disheartened to see suggestions from the West that Ukraine should give up part of its territory to satisfy the Russian President Vladimir Putin and end the war. Well, let's not give up that territory. Let's keep this war going that we're never going to win. For days, top Ukrainian officials have been fending off suggestions from European leaders, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, and New York Times editorial board that Kiev should enter talks with Russia and make concessions. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor of the Olaf Scholz have been pushed. That's his name, Olaf Scholz. That's it. Okay. And German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. How about that? Have been pushing peace talks, and top Italian officials submitted a peace plan to the United Nations that would freeze the current front lines, leading to a significant loss of territory for the Ukraine. And that's what the Ukraine doesn't want to do.
And I'll say one thing there. According to the Russians, that the Italians didn't make public that concession plan, but the Russians said that the Italian plan called for Russia returning all of the lands that they have gained and Crimea back to the Ukrainians before any negotiations start. So Washington Post here appears to be maybe fudging the truth a little bit.
Okay. So Ukraine officials believe that any concessions to satisfy Putin now will only lead to Russia regrouping and launching a far more vicious war against Ukraine in the future. Okay. Michailo Polyak, an advisor to Zelensky, told the Post that the Ukrainian government refuses any plan other than a military loss for Russia on the battlefield. If Russia doesn't lose, they won't have any internal transformation. Yet they're not going to lose.
Is he the one, Jimmy, that from the video where he's saying like that would be really cool?
Yeah,
if we...
I thought of that too. I think that's that same guy. That's a good. I thought of that guy too. A Russia that doesn't lose will, on the contrary, be more chauvinist and have an even more revanchist outlook. I don't know. I've never heard that word. Because they will hate us for humiliating them in front of the rest of the world. And accordingly, in 2 years, they will come back and kill us even more brutally. Yeah, that sounds like that maniac for sure, Kurt. Zelensky, who said Kissinger was living in 1938, a reference to attempts to appease Adolf Hitler before World War II, chided great geopoliticians trying to give away parts of Ukraine in a post on Instagram on Saturday, saying they were unwilling to see the people who live in those territories as real people. So Zelensky is saying that these are all appeasers. You can't do that. And you got to see those people who are living there as real people. We can't just throw them away, which is all bullshit.
I like how he says 1938 when like Zelensky sounds a little bit 1945, if you don't like the end.
Ordinary Ukrainians, millions of those who actually live in the territory they propose to exchange for the illusion of peace, you must always see people and remember that values are not just a word. This is all bullshit. Because those people in the Donbass, they want to be part of Russia. They don't want to be part of Ukraine because it was overthrown in 2014 and they're friendly with Nazis. This is Kyle Griffin, says President Zelensky savaged the suggestion made by Henry Kissinger that Kiev give up territory and make concessions to end the war with Russia, saying the idea smacked of attempts to appease Nazi Germany. And so that's whenever that's called peace negotiations. And they always say this, even though every war has always ended with a peace negotiation. Totally true. It's Neville Chamberlain again. How Britain betrayed Czechoslovakia in 1938 and led to Hitler invading Poland next. Appeasement. It never works with dictators. It should never be suggested with Putin. Oh, and Henry Kissinger, shut the fuck up. He's retweeting that Kyle Griffin. So that's just a dumb position. That's just, we got to have war forever.
Who's Kyle Griffin?
Just some NBC stooge. Oh. And then Joe Scarborough, another MSNBC stooge, says victory is Ukraine's only option. Appeasement at the negotiating table will only invite future attacks. Putin has made this all too clear since 2008. So that's just a moron on purpose doing the bidding of the military-industrial complex. That there is never going to be a victory in Ukraine. Never, ever going to happen.
That's
ever.
The whole NATO argument, right? Is like, well, Hitler, so that's why we have to always have this empire, because we got to stop all these Hitlers.
Well, that's what they're saying now. That's certainly what they're saying now. And they've done, this is what they've always done. Whenever you're against a war and you have an idea about how to get a negotiated settlement without war, they call you an appeaser. And that's what they're doing.
Doesn't appeasement mean like asking for peace? Like, I don't know.
Here's what, well, let's look it up. Hey, Siri, what's the definition of appeasement?
Appeasement means the action or process of appeasing.
Okay, thanks.
Great job, Siri.
Great job, Siri. So, a festival of appeasement. This is from 1990. The events currently occurring in Kuwait are an internal affair with which Iraq has no relation. Iraq's ambassador to the United States on Iraq's invasion. And so they're saying, oh, we shouldn't do a peace. So they always say this. This is before the first Gulf War, which we shouldn't have gone in. That's why Osama bin Laden bombed the World Trade Center. Bush sees talks with Ahmadinejad as appeasement. Can't even talk to him. Here's another one. McMaster says Trump's Taliban deal is Munich-like appeasement. Any peace deal, this is what they do. And here is Michael Tracy tweeted out, if you forgot what year it is, just remember that it's always 1938. Meaning that's what they say. Appeasement is as unwise in 1988 as in 1938. So they say this all the time. So when you hear this in the news or someone jag off like Joe Scarborough saying it, just know they always say this. This is their mantra.
And the people who are saying it and who are crafting this narrative, again, people like Klaus Schwab, whose father was a Nazi, made flamethrowers for the Nazis, and George Soros, who as a young boy, he
collaborated with the Nazis.
He was a collaborator? I thought he was a survivor of the Holocaust or something. I never even heard of that.
He issued summonses on behalf of the Nazis to the Jewish community, and he also, when he went to go live with his godfather, he was one of the individuals who stole the items left behind of Jewish people.
Well, I knew about the Flamenwaffen. That I didn't know about the Flamenwaffen.
So that's you're gonna see it, you're gonna hear it a lot. You probably heard it a lot, and that's what they always do. And then they'll call you, yo, what are you? You're a Russian puppet. You're a Putin puppet. You're an Assadist. You're a Saddam Hussein apologist. You're either with us or against us. Oh, it never stops. Here we're doing stand-up comedy in Irvine, California, Las Vegas, San Diego, Salt Lake City, Indianapolis, Louisville, all over the place. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for tickets.